Hi there, this is Steve Lundgren, and I'm here with Nate Streeter, owner of Paperboy, and we want to put together a presentation that specifically talks about church marketing. And so we're going to go through 4 points here and also show you some examples of some church marketing that's been done and talk about that.
Church marketing, those are like two words you're not supposed to ever say in the same sentence. You mean
Is that an oxymoron?
I don't know. Outreach. That's the way that churches like to talk about
outreach.
it, is outreach.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But we'll talk about that too, and just what does that look like? I know for so many churches that we've helped over the years, it's always tricky. They don't like to think of themselves as doing marketing.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
But
almost like doctors.
Yeah, exactly. So, but there's lots of different case scenarios that we've gone through. Let's kind of dive into the message because, there's so many different churches that we've worked with. And, for the most part, churches, they come to us with several different things. They either want to market a specific event or, something like this. This is a parents' series that this particular church was doing. Or maybe they're doing something like this where this is more of a grand opening, fall kickoff celebration, or something more, I think this again is another grand opening where they're just starting. Again, another grand opening. We do a lot of grand openings for churches and, different strategies that these different churches have taken in how they market that. Sometimes event driven, so sometimes they'll do a play or some kind of an event that they want to invite people to, and we've had really good success with that too.
So holidays and
Yep.
even like what about like when school starts up? Is that a kind of a key time too?
Yeah, I think for me, really there's 3 times a year that if I was a church, I would I sort of feel like if you're not marketing for Christmas, for Easter, and for your fall programming, I sort of see that as a misstep. Like I don't understand why a church wouldn't be reaching out to the local community those 3 times. People are extremely receptive those 3 times. So
right.
It seems to me it's sort of like our fitness companies that we do all the marketing for. When we put a flyer out the second week of January, the first week of January, people are very receptive.
That's right.
They're feeling very like they need exercise. So I think for churches, if you're not marketing around Christmas, around Easter, and for that fall programming is fantastic because so many parents, they have this sort of pull inside them, particularly where they feel like their kids should really be involved in something. And so it's a tremendous opportunity when you start thinking about late August into, I would say, early October is a fantastic time period for that.
Right.
But yeah, if I was a church. So again, here's another grand opening, a little different strategy, but similar. You and I talked, Steve, about this so many times with churches. What you want to probably do is get them towards your website. In fact, I'm looking here in one of our social proof, they were talking about, that they were getting an extra 75 to 150 hits on their website per day for several days after we did the drop. Okay. And what they were really seeing is that a lot of people were going to their website, after they got the flyer. So, with a church, people are going to be very investigative. They want to kind of see who you guys are and what you're doing. And so think about your print advertising as a way to get people to go to your website. Yeah. Now, if you can use your website, you can see like this is a very generic picture, no pictures on the back. And ironically, we killed it with this flyer. I mean, I think he got, how many was it here in my notes? I think he got 46 people who came, to his church. Yeah, I mean, that's really good for 20,000 flyers that we delivered. Yeah. So, 46 new people. And that was only the people that had indicated that they came from the flyer. I mean, some people might have, missed that. So, but, it can be fantastic if you can get pictures that are real. Like, see here, I see the pastors.
Right.
That's fantastic. It's even better, and let's go back to that one for a second. Shows me where it meets. They meet at Olson Middle School. It shows right on a map. That's nice. Mm-hmm. It can be really nice, too. Like, you see how there's real pictures here. I can kind of see like, hey, would my kids fit in here? Does it look like they would have fun?
Right.
If I'm thinking about maybe whether they should go to Awana. So,
Yeah.
I get it. Sometimes with the flyer, that's really challenging. And, in that case, try to drive them to your website. But use real pictures if you can.
Yeah.
People are asking the question. One of the barriers to purchase for churches, barriers to purchase, I realize that's not a good one for churches, but is, will I fit in? Will I, is this a place where, I will find other people like me? And I don't necessarily mean that as a socioeconomic or racial type thing. People are going to want to go where they feel like they'll fit in.
Where they feel comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. So, so those are some different things as far as message. There's just so many different ways we've been successful at churches, and so many different, going at it with this kind of Bible type scenario. That can work very well. Going at it with sort of a little bit of a funny strategy. And we have had success with that too. So this is or more serious. There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, like they'd say. And, I think what you have to do is kind of figure out what's your, how does your church fit in? Are you a really fun, hip place? Are you really serious? Are you, what kind of church are you? And go with what you're good at and, represent yourself that way.
Right. And what audience are you trying to appeal to?
Sure.
Make sure that that the flyer really speaks to that. A lot of these flyers, we can see that somebody could kind of see themselves
right
in the flyer, and then that you're going to be comfortable. You're going to fit in, or at least you feel that and that you check it out to see.
Now, if you come to me, this happens all the time too. You come to me and say, Nate, this is who we want. This girl right here. She's in her 20s. She's young. She's hip. And I said, well, who goes to your church now? They said, well, the average age is 55.
Oh.
And I said, well, you can't put a flyer out and expect that all of a sudden half your congregation is going to be 25.
Yeah.
Now, there are different strategies and ways that you can bring in more young people, but marketing is probably not going to do it for you. Like you said, Steve, it's much more likely that you're going to get people that are more similar to who you already are getting. There's also probably reasons why you have the people you have now. And those same reasons are probably the reasons that you're going to attract more people like them.
Yeah. Let's go back to some of our points there. We talked about the first one was message.
Yep. Let's talk about timing, and we actually went into that as well.
Yeah, we got into that.
And with flyers, you do have the ability. We only deliver your flyer by itself, and you really just have, you can control the timing. If you have an event, we can drop the flyers a week before, 2 weeks before, just like direct mail. And or if you want to spread your response out, we can do that too. Most churches aren't really thinking like that, but perhaps if you want to do that, but and then be there when people are ready to buy. We kind of talked about that,
Yep.
And let's kind of take this in a fiscal step too. With churches, I know you guys again don't like to talk like this. Well, I've some pastors behind closed doors. When I've had conversations with them, they will. But the truth of the matter is, particularly around Christmas, people are very much in the giving spirit. When you get visitors that come in the middle to late December, they're giving. And, you're going to see that visitors that come at that time period are going to definitely give more. Right. So even when you're thinking about it just from a purely return on investment standpoint, your money is well spent to be spending money at late, between, I'd say, Thanksgiving and 2 weeks into December. I guess I can't understand why any church wouldn't be doing quite a bit of marketing during that period of time.
Right.
It seems to me like you really should be. And so now let's talk a little bit about Target. With churches, we've talked about this, Stephen. I think most pastors kind of get this, that people drive all over the Twin Cities to come to a church.
Right.
But, there's some caveats to that, right? Or they'll drive as far as they're willing to drive to work. We've talked about that.
And maybe it has to do with how long it takes to get there more than how many miles, because you don't want the rush hour traffic to deal with.
Right. But I think if you're a church that attracts kids, that's a big caveat. People, if they're going to be back there on Wednesdays, for some kind of a Wednesday night thing, and then on Thursday nights for play practice, and they are not going to want to be driving all over the cities for that. And if you can really, most churches we work with are really looking at a 5 mile or I'd say 2 to 5 mile. I'd say 3 to 5 is probably the most common, where we're really looking at 3, 4, 5 miles right around their church, and that tends to be where they have the most success targeting.
Yeah.
So, and again, you get people who just moved into the neighborhood, or you get people who, they're in between churches for whatever reason. And so you're just catching them at the right time, but the targeting is right. It's very convenient for them.
Right.
So,
so can we do demographics? Is that
yep,
something
we can do demographics too. So if you have very specific needs, this is a quick map. It just shows, let's say you're a church here in Eden Prairie, Chanhassen type area, and you only wanted certain income levels or certain ages. Yeah, we can hit neighborhoods that would meet your specific demographics. Right. I don't often do that for churches because they don't tend to want that quite as much. But yes, we can absolutely do that if they need to.
So it tends to be more of a proximity mapping for churches.
Right. Yep. Exactly. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about exposure. A lot of people come to us and they're like, "Why in the world would churches use flyers? They're a nonprofit. It's so cheap to mail."
Right.
With that nonprofit status. And the reality is we do a lot of flyers for churches, and the reality is it's all about exposure.
Yeah.
And about positioning. When you hang a flyer on somebody's door, or with our advanced adhesive technique, we actually stick it to the side of the box like this. You know what they're going to think? They're going to think somebody from your church hung it on their door.
Yeah.
And that's a very different feel than a postcard that comes in the mail.
They get a sense that you're out in the community.
Exactly. So, and they can't ignore this. When it's hanging from their door, that's a very much different exposure level than up here in this mailbox.
Yeah.
Where it's just
lost
mixed.
with the junk mail.
Yeah, exactly. So, you have a very different feel. You also are getting a lot different exposure. And what we do, we have our T-band method where we poke a small hole in the corner of the flyer, and then we use this rubber band like you can see in this picture up here. It's a special little rubber band to hang it. Otherwise, we also use our advanced adhesive process where we stick the flyer to the side of the box like you see here, kind of like a Post-it note.
Yeah.
So, but the key really is exposure. You're getting your ad seen.
Right.
So, and that's really what we do. We like to talk about, lots of our customers have very good success with us, and obviously these aren't churches, and they're talking about things in terms of money and return on investment and how many different calls and different things. But even with churches, I think, like we said, we have churches that get 46 people that visited on a $20,000 mailer, or we have like I said, 100 and some extra people who are visiting their website each day for a couple weeks. Right. So those are real numbers that we get from churches too. Yep. We're always willing to talk about things in churches. I mean, here's one: 50% of the cost, far more effective.
Yeah, there you go.
That's one from a church. So those are things that we're always wanting to talk about, and we'd love to talk to you about. If you have very specific numbers, you say, "Nate, I really need 6 new families," or "I really need," whatever. Don't worry, we're willing to talk about that and kind of work through what that would really look like.
Right.
So certainly a question we get all the time is, how do I know all my flyers are being delivered? And we do that with GPS tracking. We track every single flyer and can tell you when we were at a specific house. But we also use visual tracking. I know it sounds crazy, but we actually take a picture at every single house as well. And we give you that data after the delivery's done. And so really we're just trailblazing in these areas. And we don't think there's anybody in the country that's even doing that as far as flyer delivery companies. But we really want to be able to show people that, you can be confident all of your flyers are delivered. And after the delivery, we'll prove it to you. So.
Right. Well, let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
What's the next step?
Well, if you're thinking about how to really do better outreach out in the community and be a better presence in your community, I would love to meet with you, talk with you, and kind of help you understand how flyers could be a part of what you're doing. We realize that it's not likely that flyers are going to completely transform your church, although we've had that happen with several of our churches. But it's certainly, there's opportunities throughout the year. Flyers are a fantastic vehicle to really be out there with high exposure, in the communities and really tell your story, to the community. There's just so many different ways to do that. We didn't even go into some of the other things as far as social proof. We've worked with a few churches where they really focus on, testimonies and different things. There's just so many different things you can do. But it's all about telling your story. Yeah. What is it? Is it a program, an event? Is it testimonies? Are you just opening up? Whatever it is, we really want to be able to be there and help you tell your story. And so give us a call at the office here, 612-702-1710. You can email me, Nate at paperboyprinting.com, or you can connect with me on Twitter too at Nate Streeter. You can certainly hit us up on LinkedIn too. You'll find all the wonderful things that people have said about us there too.
Yeah, there you go.
So you can look me up there.
All right. Well, we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks.